This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe and welcome to our circle.
Hello, everybody. It is end of October. Can you believe it? It is the end of October, and it is coming up close to Halloween. But before we get too much in Halloween, I wanted to tell everybody to please be safe out there this weekend when they go trick-or-treating or whatever they plan to do. Stay at home, watch movies, hang out with the family. And if you do plan to stay home with the family and not go out trick-or-treating, I have a wonderful book for you to read, and it is by a wonderfully dear friend of mine named Jeannie Moon, who is an award-winning and best-selling author. She's a Long Island, native Long Islander, and imagines that that conjures big images of big hair and nasally accents, but that's not the Long Island she knows. She was raised in the North Shore that once would have been called very cool, but now it's called very trendy, and she married her high school sweetheart. Her children were born in the same hospital she was, so she has very deep roots there and knows about community and family, which she brings into her wonderful stories. She is a wife, a grandma, a teacher, a librarian, an author, and all of those things she wraps into her characters, and just an all-around fabulous person. So her latest book, Christmas in Angel Harbor, is out now. You can find Jeannie on her website, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and BookBub. Welcome to the show, Jeannie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this book and talk to you. It's been a while. So
it has. Well, we talk a lot per Facebook, back and forth on private message, but it's always good to hear someone's voice. I mean, that's just wonderful.
I know, but I think we're all spinning out of control with the lives. I mean, you with your kids and me with the day job and, the family and the books. It's just like, I'm like, I just need to settle down and actually talk to people. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And it's, it's something we miss with the busyness of our lives. So I'm really happy to be talking about a book and hope this can help people, just find some time to settle a little bit.
And the cover is beautiful. And,
it really is.
They always do beautiful covers. And we're very fortunate as authors for them, because Jane Porter and Megan Farrell and everybody involved is they've always appreciate the response from the authors for covers, which is not a typical thing. Not all publishers will. But, I mean, they really just knocked it out of the park on this one.
Yeah, they really did. And when I saw the mock-up from the cover designer, it really just took my breath away. They had asked my input, which, again, you always get the art fact sheet. I don't know if people know that, but authors get something called an art fact sheet from their editors or from the art department, and they want to know how you envision your cover. And I will say, in most cases, the cover never comes out how you envision it. You can put down all of the information you want on that art fact sheet, whomever you're writing for, and unless you're a really big name, big advance author, you're not necessarily going to get a lot of input. But one of the things that Thule does for us is they give us a lot of input on the covers because they feel as though we're as invested in this as anybody else, and it has to come from our heart as well as theirs. So I always appreciate it. But really, honestly, I didn't have to say a thing. This cover came out just as I imagined it, and it's just, it's stunning. It really is. People just go, oh, my gosh, it's so beautiful. And it really is. And I hope it depicts the book inside. That's really all I want.
Tell us how you came up with the story.
Well, first things first, I wanted to write a seasoned romance. I wanted to write a romance about characters over 40 because it's one of the areas in our genre that just is still getting pushed to the side. It's getting better, but people seem to think that if you're over 40, romance doesn't happen to you. Now, granted, I've been married a long time, so I didn't, that's not an issue for me, but I'd hate to think that if I wasn't married, that if I'm 40, I'm done. So, and there are a lot of people out there who are looking for love, and why shouldn't they have it? And it's our readership, our demographic in romance is not just 20-year-olds. The bulk of the readers are between 40 and 65. So why shouldn't they have stories? There was some real solid ageism in the industry, and it's starting to crumble a little. So that was first. The second thing is that the inspiration is actually a small town on the North Shore, not far from where I live, called Northport. And Long Island is broken into townships, and inside those townships are small towns with main streets and villages and their own personalities. And people don't think about that way about Long Island. Like I said, there's a lot of stereotypes that go along with it. You either think of, the Long Island Expressway or the Hamptons. You don't think about the fact that really we're a bunch of small towns strung together on this sandbar that juts out into the Atlantic Ocean. And each town has its own personality. So Northport is just a really cool little village. It's set right on the water. You come in through this one road called Woodbine Avenue, and then Main Street connects to that in a perpendicular fashion. But if you look down Main Street, you can look right out at the harbor, and it was a seafaring village. And it still has the old trolley tracks embedded into the pavement.
Oh, wow.
On Main
amazing.
Street. They used to take people up to the Long Island Railroad station, not too far away. The buildings are old. A lot of the stores have been established a long time. People stay there. They have their roots very deep, and I wanted to write this story. I wanted to set something there. I've set books on Long Island before, my Compass Cove series, but this one needed something special, and I always thought the town needed a bookstore. It doesn't have one, so I figured, well, why not? I'm gonna create a bookstore and a wonderful season romance, and it grew from there.
Wow. And, it's fun because you've got all these different things. I mean, in it, you've got just the hometown feel and how you express the people and the traditions and the food. And, I mean, all of that is so wonderfully wrapped. And so you've got the setting. So tell me about the people.
Oh, the people. Well, like I said, I wanted my older characters. And Jane Fallon, who's my heroine, she just came to life really quickly. I saw her as this woman who had dreams of her own, but they were foiled. So think almost like It's a Wonderful Life.
Sure.
With George Bailey, and he took over the building alone, but he had plans. Well, Jane has a similar thing. She thought she was going to go travel the world and discover great new things. She was an archaeologist and, had her education planned out, and then her father died. And she came home to run the bookstore that had been in town since the 30s. And it was the family store. But the thing I love about Jane is she's not a sad sack.
Sure.
Things didn't work out the way she thought they were going to, but she has a wonderful outlook on life, and I wanted that to come through, that people can be resilient and they can roll with the punches, and Jane did. So people might say, well, where's the conflict in this? Well, the conflict is that her life is threatened. Her lifestyle, her business, her existence, the thing that she's invested so much in ends up being threatened, and and then she starts to wonder, well, what impact have I made? And don't we all think that way? Don't we all wonder, what am I doing? How am I making an impact? How do I matter? Do I make a difference? And our hero, Danny Gallo, comes in, and it's a second chance romance, a reunion story, if you will. And he's had fame and fortune in his life, but he comes home because he realizes it's very hollow. His fame, and so he comes home because he wants to reboot and change direction, and he and Jane reconnect, and he's the one that ends up really showing her what she means not only to him but to everybody else. So it's that whole wonderful vibe that you see. You do make a difference, and every little thing we do makes a difference. And I think sometimes people forget that.
They do, and I think that's probably hit hard the last several months, because I know that there was this idea that, all these things that I've wanted to do, I can do now. I can lose 50 pounds. I can learn to play guitar with my feet, and all these things. And then maybe we didn't lose 50 pounds. Maybe we gained 15, and the guitar's still in the case, right? So it's but it's one of those things that you say, okay, but what positive things have I done, and reevaluating. And I think we do forget the positive impacts we make, even if it seems like a very small thing to us.
Right.
It could be huge to someone else.
Exactly. And I think it's about perspective. And so much of what we see in Jane is how she manages perspective and how she does it well. But I think this was one of the advantages of writing an older character, is that there's a wisdom that comes with it that you don't have in your 20s. And it's no offense to 20-year-olds, but you don't, because you just don't have the years behind you. And I remember one of the most liberating things that happened to me is when I turned 50. And it wasn't like, ooh, magical, you're 50. But there was something very settling about it in knowing what I know and being able to look back at what I've accomplished and being able to take a look at the things that I've done and the people I've helped and the people who know me and the relationships I've made, and be able to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. And, things don't always go how they're supposed to, but that's life. So when she gets this curveball thrown at her, we definitely see her reel from it and question and think, now what am I going to do? But we also see somebody who doesn't crumble under pressure. And I think that was most important. Somebody said to me, I just don't want to read any more doormats. I said, no doormat here. Not even a little bit. Not even a little.
Well, and I think, too, there's that confidence that we get. I know that when I was first a nurse, I became a nurse in my mid-20s, and I was afraid of a lot of stuff. Did I do things right? Am I going to, very intimidated by more educated people within the medical field. And then I learned after a couple of years that I had an immense amount of power by, one, doing a job well, but also being able to stand up and say, okay, well, if that's the way you're going to do that, I'll be sure and document it just like what you said. And the difference would be, oh, okay, well, hold on. It's like, so let's work together for this, right? And so it's that feeling like you're talking about of that, the sense of wisdom and that empowerment that comes with experience. Because, we all get to the point, it's like, okay, well, we can do this. I mean, I don't particularly want to, but I'm not afraid to. So,
exactly. Sure. And she's facing changes. Her daughter's going to go off to college. Her mother's deciding to retire. So everything about what she's dealing with is in flux. And then she gets hit with something else. So her life is in a state of change. And and I guess the other thing I want to show is that, love comes when you least expect it. And love, that whole idea of love conquers all, I don't want to be that, trite about it. Yeah. But it does help give you, a lot of times, if you know you're not alone, it can give you the strength to move forward. Sure. And I think that's it. And we have a mother's love, we have the love she has as a daughter, and then the romantic love that comes later on in her life. And I saw a review, and I think one of the nicest things I saw was that the reviewer said, this book just recognizes that people over 50 fall in love. There are no excuses. There's no justification for it. It's just part of life, and it's wonderful that that's the way it's done. And that's what I wanted. That was what I wanted. Yeah. I just wanted it to be just normal, because people are people, and it doesn't matter if you're 25 or 35 or 55 or 75. Love will find you if you let it. Yeah. And that's really the thing. And Jane had this big heart, and it found her. She she'd put a lot of good out into the world, and good came back to her. So.
Well, and I wish, my husband and I have talked about this. I wish that English had the different versions of, or the different words for love, like, is it Greek? They have like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 10 or something.
There are many different words for love because it depends on the type of love you're talking about.
Exactly. So you're talking about a mother's love, and you know, and then the love of romance or from a lover, and all those things. And I think that, you know, when we talk about falling in love, if there were other words to describe it versus the all-encompassing word of, well, I love pizza. It's like, well, okay, people over 50 fall in love. Okay, well, no, I mean, think about that. So it's important to understand the level. So, and you did that. You threaded, you know, wove this beautiful story, and a woman who knew who she was. Things got a little out of whack. She was able to deal with that and have this beautiful new life, or new addition, a new layer to it. And so what was the first scene you wrote in this book? Like, when you were thinking of the story, it's like, I have to write a scene here or with this, or what was that first
I'm a
scene?
very linear writer. Like, I almost have to go beginning to end. I'm one of them. So I actually did write the first. It's crazy. Like, people say, well, just write anything, write it out of order, and I'm going, I can't do that. Like, that would make me nuts. But no, I actually love the first line of this book, and it's November on Long Island. What was it? Something about now I can't even remember it. Like, I wrote it from Danny's point of view because he was the one coming back into town, and it was you know, he was taking a run, and what I wanted to do was establish the scene. I wanted to drop people into this town and give them a sense of where they were, because I thought that was really important. When you write small town stories, the town becomes a character into and of itself. So it was important for me to create the scene. November on Long Island was unpredictable, kind of like a woman.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it was. The weather on Long Island in November was unpredictable, kind of like a woman. And so he was taking his run, and he looked at Main Street. He was coming down the hill, and he smelled, you know, the bacon and eggs cooking in this favorite deli that was still there from when he was younger. And, you know, he stopped in to get an egg sandwich, but he saw the bookstore as he looked up Main Street, and he remembered his time there. He honed his craft as a teen, and so I wanted to set the town up in that first scene, and that was important to me because the town came to life. You know, and I created some great little stores and some characters that are screaming for their own stories now. So I'm going to have to see when I can do those. But, you know, I created this great bakery called Sweet Chemistry. And people say, well, how do you think of these things? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm sitting there writing along, and I need a name for the place. And I'm going, well, my baker is a former industrial chemist who decided, and I think the line was she liked mixing butter and sugar rather than polymers or something along those lines. And so I was like, oh, well, what was this called? A bakery, Sweet Chemistry. Because what is baking really but chemistry? It's the combining of ingredients to create a reaction that creates something else. So, you know, you put things together, you have a catalytic reaction, and then you get cookies.
That's right.
So we called it Sweet Chemistry. So I had some fun with that too, and you know, with food, because there's always food. There's always food in my books. I'm Italian, and food is love. and
well,
so
I'm going to have to ask you for your gnocchi recipe soon, because every time I try and make it, I end up with this massive amount of pasta, because I can't ever seem to get the right balance of flour and potatoes.
Gnocchi's crazy. Honestly, I tried to make it once and I got blobs. It's just, I'll ask my cousin for her gnocchi recipe because she's got a really good one. So,
okay.
But yeah, I've never been able to master it. I'm very good with like, you give me pile of ingredients and say this, you have to make dinner out of this, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'll just,
right on.
whatever. You pile some sausage and some pasta and some vegetables, and like, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'll make you something. But yeah, and I like to bake. I do like to bake. So I actually published on my website Sweet Chemistry's chocolate chip cookies. And there is a killer good recipe for chocolate chip cookies on my website, with or without nuts if you prefer, because I happen to like nuts in my chocolate chip cookies, pecans or pecans if you're from the South. I know all my Southern friends cringe when I say pecans, so I'll say pecans.
It really depends on what part of the South you're in.
I know, but I have this one friend who's from Georgia, and she's like, it's pecans, and I'm going, it's pecans. I was like, pecans. So we have a little bit of fun with that. I said, if you really want me to do, I'll say pecans and say it like a real New Yorker. So,
right?
I can do that. I can twang up if you need me to, but that's all right.
Right. It's funny because
we're still trying to figure out how my granddaughter says because none of us really have heavy New York accents because we grew up here and
sure.
They've faded over time. My granddaughter, though, she's 22 months. The dog, it's the dog, and I'm going, where did she get the dog? I go, next thing she's going to be saying is, "Ma, let's take the dog to get some coffee." Like,
right?
I don't know.
I had a friend of mine in college. I had a friend of mine in college who his sister was marrying a guy from New York, and so they kept joking with her saying, and we were at University of Texas, and so we kept joking with her saying, when are you going to lose the Texas accent because you're up, you're in New York City all the time, and so she's like, oh, I'll never lose my accent, and he asked her something, and she went, sure, and he went, excuse me?
Sure, of
she
course,
said, sure. He's like,
Yeah. I know. And the thing is, if you go into Manhattan, most people talk like this. They have that classic mid-Atlantic English. Most people who grew up in New York City, in Manhattan, unless they grew up in one of the boroughs, like Brooklyn has a very distinctive accent, so does the Bronx. It's just part of it. And it comes from the British and the French and and the Dutch that were all there. It all kind of grew out of that. But Manhattan, because it was really the home of the upper crust, if you were on Fifth Avenue or wherever, it's like the old established New Yorkers are still going to talk like their jaws are locked. They have that mid-Atlantic Katharine Hepburn English going on. And so people are like, why don't they talk like they're from New York? I go, they do. I go, that's exactly how they talk. I was like, and I talk like a North Shore Long Islander whose father's family has been here since the 20s. So, that's it. It's just everybody in my high school spoke the way I did. It's, people are like, you don't sound like you're from New York. I'm going, what am I supposed to sound like?
I know. It's interesting how people interpret different things. When we went over, we got to go to Europe a couple of years ago, and people were expecting, I guess, like a classic bad American traveler.
Much twangier Texas, I guess, right?
Right. And I very much worked on making sure I spoke French and toned everything down. But it's very fascinating. They're all, you're from Texas. It's like it's its own universe,
Exactly. And people say that, you're from Long Island, and I'm going, nobody says that. Nobody says that. So it's just fun, but it is fun to set it in my hometown, in the area that I know so well. And it was funny because I never thought it was. I think, I can write anywhere, and maybe I'll set a book in California. And originally my Compass Cove book was set in the Pacific Northwest. And I had a very good friend who's an author who said, it's great, but it's on the wrong coast. You're looking at the wrong ocean. You have to move it back home. She said, these characters are not from the Pacific Northwest. They're from New York. They're from New England.
Mm-hmm.
They're not from here. And she was from there. And it's just, I was like, why do we avoid it? Because really, it's quite charming. It really is a very lovely place.
Right.
I mean, we're
and
taking,
it's kind of like going back. Yeah, it's kind of going back to your perspective of being 20 and having all the answers and knowing everything, and then having a different perspective when you're in your 40s. It's like, well, all that stuff it was pretty good. It wasn't.
Yeah, it is.
Anything. Yeah. So for sure to kind of interlace it. Mm-hmm. And it makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a pool in our backyard, and it's old and it's a semi-in-ground, and so we were thinking, okay, we have to redo the deck and we have to do the pool. And I was talking to my husband about it and the budget and everything else, and I said, let's just fill it in. We're done. Let's just fill it in. And so I was talking to my daughter, and she said, oh, well, the kids would have used it and all that. I said, Julie, we live 10 minutes from a beach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't need a pool. I said, we live 20 minutes from the ocean. I said, we don't need a pool.
Yeah.
So she said, yeah, you're right. We don't. And I was like, we're good. We're fine. So I said, I'll put up a sprinkler for them. It'll be okay.
Right. So, well, and when you have little ones like that, I'm always nervous around a pool. I mean,
of course.
No.
Of course.
Fill it in, let them play in the dirt. They'll be fine.
Well, they'll
have a good time.
We're just gonna put up a swing set at some point, and that's it. But she was, it was funny, and I was like, we have beaches. We have beaches. We have the ocean. I said, it's fine. I said, we can take them to the beach and let them fish for minnows. I said, on the North Shore, it's fine. And she said,
right.
Yeah, you're right. We do. I said, we forget. I said, and that is much healthier, I said, than dunking their head in chlorine. I said, at this point, if we have the option. So I said, I think it's fine. So she agreed. But it's like, we're so conditioned for all these controlled environments that we forget sometimes all the wonderful things we have around us. Like, we don't need to go and walk on a treadmill, because we actually have some beautiful state parks very close by that we can take nature walks right out to the coast, or do a boardwalk walk. Like, we don't have to control every single environment, because we actually have a really beautiful environment to live in. And I think that's one of the things that bringing my stories home did, is it forced me to really look at where I lived and say, wow, like I get to live. It's not that I have to live here. I get to live here.
Right.
And I think that changes your perspective too. And there have been a lot of people who've commented, local people who've said, you forced me to take another look at where we live and learn to appreciate it. And
so have you had anybody come up and say, well, I know where that is, but that doesn't go next to it? I mean, I know that, you've got your own town, but I mean,
But that's when I go, but it's fiction. I'll say, yeah, I think it's fiction. And they'll go, but there's no store like this in town. I go, no, there's not. But in my town there is, so it's fine.
Yes. You write your book.
Yeah, but there were a couple of people who read it ahead of time who said, God, we really do need a bookstore in town. Maybe you should open one. I'm just like, right, in my next life. I go, I was like, I'd love to, but maybe if the lottery drops out of the sky on me, I'll do that, but I can't right now.
We can add 8 more hours to the day, so yeah.
Right, and some massive capital influx to do that, but but yes, it definitely, that would be like my dream right now if I could do it. If all the stars aligned, I was like, I would so put a bookstore in that town. And I know exactly where I'd put it too. I know the space that's available right now that I would absolutely do it. Like, I would say, this one right here.
Right there. Yeah, there's a spot near me too that I'm just like chomping at the bit, and it's in a strip mall, and it was a Charming Charlie's. So it was like right on the corner. It's got all of these windows, and it's even got a pink door. Okay.
Oh wow.
And I know, and I'm just like, there's no way.
This is an old house that's attached to a large building in the back. So the front looks like a house storefront with big windows, and I was like, oh. And there's this little alcove off. I said, this would be the perfect children's room right here. But it used to be a hardware store.
Oh,
and
wow.
the hardware, they retired. The people had this hardware store for like 90 years, and they retired. So and that's it.
Wow.
But I was like, yeah, my next, if like I said, if the lottery, falls on my head, and I can do that, I will have a romance bookstore in the middle of Northport.
Why not?
Yep.
Why not? So now
That'd
that
be
you've
fun.
got this book down, and you mentioned having other characters and other places in town that are screaming for their stories, who's screaming the loudest?
Oh, right now, well, there's two. Viti, who owns the bakery, but Claire is who owns the yarn shop. She's the one. And there's this really beautiful shop that I thought of, and it's really a yarn and home store shop, and I actually modeled it after this shop in Kinsale, Ireland called Granny's Bottom Drawer that we visited when we were there a couple years ago. And they have beautiful knitworks and everything, and Claire is Irish. She's an Irish transplant into Angel Harbor, and she's been there a while, and she has this beautiful store, and she's very quiet and very sweet, and a little sad. We don't know why, but I want to explore that. I want to know why she's sad. Like, I haven't figured it out yet, but she is, and I wonder what's under it all.
Right.
So she's the one that would go first. I would give her something first.
Oh, yeah.
I think Viti needs to settle a little bit.
I love it. Are these, and now when you have your buildings and you've got the bookstore, you've got the yarn shop, you've got the bakery, are they within they're pretty close to each other.
Everything's in walking distance. And
right.
and then the store that I actually modeled after a real store in town is the candy shop. And there's a shop in town called Carl's Candies in Northport, and the women who own it named it after their grandfather. And they have all this vintage candy, like all the stuff you used to get when you were a kid, the wax lips and everything else, as well as handmade chocolates. But Gina, who is there most of the time, I actually put her in the book. She's in there. And one of the things they do at Christmas, and they took this over from the hardware store when they retired, is they have a whole big Christmas pageant the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and they light the leg lamp from A Christmas Story in the candy shop window.
Oh, wow.
It's great. The high school band comes out, the kick line, the place is mobbed, the whole town gets lit up. It's amazing. It's so much fun. And it's
I had my friend up in Maine. She talked about how they would light up the lobster traps.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like a tree, and they would light up the lobster. It's just like all these really cool moments in these smaller towns that nothing that knocks the big towns, because like huge Christmas trees and such.
Oh,
but
sure,
there is
absolutely.
some sort of, I don't know, just a comfort, I guess, in seeing everybody come together and lighting up the leg lamp at the candy shop.
Lighting up the leg lamp at the candy store, and lighting up the whole pier and the harbor park, and then the boat parades that happen with everybody's boats all lit up, and Santa coming in, and it's just great. It's fun. It's part of our identity. And that's what I love so much, is that these are all things that these are those common threads. It's the context that makes small towns special. It's the shared history. And when people have shared history, that's when connections are formed, and that's when those settings come to life. Because you have that context, that history, those shared experiences that people can relate to. And that's really what forms relationships. It forms friendships. It forms romantic relationships. It forms parent-child relationships. It forms everything. Yeah.
And it is. It's like a snuggling down in a really comfortable chair with a great cup of whatever, and falling into these wonderfully comfortable, lovely moments. So you've got this. You're working. You're thinking about the next book. What else do you have coming? What other projects do you have?
Next year, Compass Cove #4 comes out, and it's going to be a Christmas book.
Okay.
So I'm really excited.
Cool.
I just locked that down with Thule, and it's probably going to be November of next year. So we're just working out the details. But so Compass Cove #4. think we have a title, but I don't want to reveal it too soon. But that's what I'm working on right now. And then I'm hoping I can get an Angel Harbor book also done this year. Compass Cove 4 is going. Like, it's actually kind of flying out of my fingers, which is really nice for a change. And I should have time to do another book. And then I have my book Until You, which came out in 2015, which was an older woman, younger man, hockey romance. And so many people have been clamoring for a story about my heroine's daughter. Well, she was only 17 at the time, and now that she's more grown up, they've wanted to get her love story, that she got involved with somebody and they want to know what happened. So because they had to break up at the end, and they said, are you ever going to bring them back together? And I was like, yeah, I really have to write that. So I really have to write that. It's been I have a full plate, and I don't hate my job. People say, oh, the day job, do you want to leave it? I'm like, I'm going to retire in a few years because, I've been at this a long time, but I don't hate my work. I like teaching. I like being a school librarian. So I do put in a lot of time, doing it, and I don't detest it. I hate getting up at 5:30 in the morning. That's about the worst of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So have a lot of kids been reading, during the lockdowns, pandemics? I mean, have you seen a lot more kids wanting books?
I wish I could say yes.
Okay.
But I think part of the problem is that we have a very big print book collection, and the public libraries were great in helping us hook the kids up with Libby, which is the Overdrive app that public libraries can use. And we were trying to get the kids all hooked up with that, but they're very resistant to ebooks unless they absolutely have to. So we're actually instituting an ebook program through my school library at this point. So I'm hoping that they'll get more used to the format and being able to borrow books on the fly. That maybe that'll make it easier for them because it's more convenient.
Yeah.
But we always have readers. We always have kids who read, and those kids are going to read. I find that we have really good results with kids in elementary school reading, and something happens between middle school and high school. When they get into middle school, when they get to high school, that kills it, and I can't figure out what it is. So my goal is, and I know the middle school librarian's goal is to keep them reading. And I'm in a big district. We have 3 middle schools and 2 high schools. So we're all working together to try to keep them moving.
Yeah, I'd like to know that too because, I remember just reading constantly, but my parents were big readers. So I don't know if we get too obsessed with, like, the homework goes up or grades or, like extracurriculars or what that deters that
it's a combination.
Reading time.
I think it's a combination of the extracurriculars, the changes in how their content is being delivered, the classes they go to, and I think it's also the social piece. I mean, and we have to recognize the fact that this developmentally they're social animals at that age, and they're going through a lot of flux and trying to figure out who they are, and reading books is on the bottom of the list of, well, am I going to be included with this group of kids? Because if I'm not, then I'm nobody. So I think that there's probably that, and I think the way their brains are wired, I think that they get those endorphin hits from things like Snapchat and Instagram and other stuff rather than getting them from other places.
Yeah.
They don't even really watch movies or TV, which I find fascinating.
Really?
Like I'll say to them, and I'll say, well, okay, you need a book for an independent read. What's the last movie you watched that you really liked? Oh, I really don't watch movies. I'm going, you don't? Do you watch Netflix? Nah, not really. I watch things on my phone. Like I watch YouTube, I do this, and I'm like, and they don't. And I'll say, well, what TV show do you like? I don't watch TV. I'm like, really? They don't.
Wow.
They really don't. It's the content is delivered to their palms, and it's rapid fire, and it switches every few minutes. And so I think because of that, it's hard for them to engage in long something that takes longer attention span.
Right.
I think that's part of it. I think it's developmental. I think it changes over time, but it's hard. It's hard for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always
time.
surprised when I meet adults that are like, yeah, I'm not really a big reader. I'm like, well, okay, what is the last book you read? Oh, they're too long. I just read magazines sometimes. I'm just, I think, really?
No, some people are just like that. I mean, you'd think I raised readers. My 2 daughters don't read a lot. Now, my one daughter has 2 small children, so I kind of get it. But my other daughter doesn't.
Right.
But her thing is, I work like 12 hours a day, Mom. She goes, I come home, I'm tired. And she's right. That's true. I'm thinking that, when things settle for them or things change, they'll figure it out. But my son is my reader. He's the one that he's 27, and he's the one that still will, come digging for a book or go to the library or check something out or buy something on his Kindle. And, he's my reader. He's always reading something. Like, oh, I just read a Bukowski novel. I just read Chuck Palahniuk. I just read this. Oh, did you read that, Mom? I'm like, oh, no, I didn't read that one, but okay. Oh, I just took out a Kant book, Immanuel Kant from the library. I'm going, what? Like, but that's who he is. That's just who he is. And I've accepted that. My daughters are not that way. He's my artist too. So they're all different.
Well,
raised in the same house, all different.
And you just mentioned the graphic art and we have about 3 minutes, but it's one of those things that I think about initially when I was looking at graphic novels. I'd be like, oh, really, but it's definitely a way to keep kids engaged in reading stories.
I agree.
Because those visual cues sometimes they need it, especially kids who have issues with dyslexia and everything else. That visual cue, it keeps them engaged with the story. So
I was a big comic book reader when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
My father was a music teacher. He had a private studio, and he used to keep a stock of comics in his waiting area. And I would be down there all the time. I was reading comic books. So somebody says, oh, so what did you read, like Archie and Veronica or whatever? I was like, oh, hell no. I read Marvel. Like, I was a Wonder Woman fan. When Captain Marvel came out a couple of years ago, like I could tell my husband the history. Like that was what I did. But
well, that was funny you say that, because when at the very end of Infinity War, and it popped up on the beeper, and I was like, oh my God, because we were in the theater, and I was like, yes. And my husband, who was never a big superhero guy, he says, so who is that? And I was like, it's Captain Marvel. And he's like, well, what does he do? I said, oh, she, she. Like he got a whole earful the whole drive home.
Hello, she.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Believe
That's
me,
what I
he
said
knows
to my
now.
husband. He said, did you hear they're going to make Captain Marvel a woman? I went, duh. Captain Marvel is a woman. Like, but I think the thing about comics is that it's story, and graphic novels are story, and they can be powerful stories too. Yeah, if you've ever seen Persepolis, and it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you. Yeah. And so if you want to find Jeannie, she is on her Facebook. She's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, BookBub, and her website. And you can go find her at Jeannie Moon. That's JEANNIE Moon, just like the moon.com. You've got all her books right there. You could sign up for her newsletter, get all the chocolate chip cookie recipe, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So you can find her. And when you have your next one out, please come back and talk to us.
I would love to. I'll come back and talk to you anytime. You know that. So.
All right, everybody. This is Patricia W. Fisher with Readers Entertainment Radio talking to best-selling author Jeannie Moon. And if you haven't yet, please go vote, because you don't want to stand in line for hours and hours and hours on Election Day. Do it early if you can. And stay safe out there, everybody. Keep on reading.
This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe, and welcome to our circle.